Listen carefully for a moment. Have you noticed how things around Social Security feel different right now? Not loud, not announced, just different. For a lot of people, the money still comes in. The dates still show up on the calendar. But there's a strange quiet underneath it all. Fewer explanations, shorter letters, more generic language. And when people call for answers, they don't always get the same clarity they used to. If you rely on Social Security in any form, retirement, SSDI, SSI, survivor benefits, you've probably felt it. That uneasy feeling that something is moving behind the scenes, but no one is saying exactly what yet. Here's why that matters. Right now, inside the Social Security Administration, internal files with a very specific and unusual label are actively being reviewed, not archived, not pending, not pushed to the side, reviewed. And the label on those files is turning heads. They're marked TS, 2 letters, but they carry weight. Inside government systems, labels like that aren't used casually. They're not there for routine paperwork. They exist to separate ordinary processing from decisions that could affect a lot of people at once. And here's the part that's hard to ignore. Internally, TS is being tied to Trump-era stimulus language, not press releases, not campaign speeches, administrative language, policy language, the kind that doesn't show up in headlines until much later, if at all. Now, let me be clear about something, because this is important. This does not mean checks are going out tomorrow. It does not mean a payment is guaranteed, and it does not mean everyone will qualify. But it does mean something rare is happening. Files connected to past stimulus authority are being taken off the shelf and looked at again, right now. While most people still think everything is frozen or finished, ask yourself something honestly. If you live on a fixed income, even a small change can matter more than people realize. An extra few $100s one time, a temporary relief payment, a decision that reduces pressure for a single month. That can mean choosing between debt and breathing room, and most people would never know that kind of relief is even being discussed unless they're paying very close attention. What makes this moment different is the timing. Costs are still high, Medicare premiums haven't gone backwards, food and utilities haven't magically become cheaper, and millions of seniors and disabled Americans are stretching the same dollars thinner every single month. So when internal SSA reviews start moving quietly, without public explanation, it raises real questions. Why now? Why this label? And who is this really about? Because if this were routine, it would already be public. And if it were meaningless, those files would still be collecting dust. Instead, they're being reviewed. And that tells us one thing very clearly. This isn't finished. Now let's slow this down and make sense of what's actually happening, because this is where most people start getting confused. Inside the Social Security Administration, not all files move the same way. Most benefits are handled through routine systems, automated rules, fixed formulas. Once those are set, they don't change often, and when they do, it's usually announced well in advance. But every so often, a different type of review shows up. These are not everyday files. They don't move through normal payment channels. They don't belong to a single person, a single claim, or a single appeal. They're policy-level files. That's what makes this situation stand out. The TS label isn't something clerks slap on paperwork casually. It's an internal flag that tells multiple departments, this file connects to past executive authority and potential broad impact. In plain English, it means this. These files trace back to stimulus-style decisions, the kind made during national emergencies, economic disruptions, or special authorizations that allowed money to move faster and under different rules. That's why the Trump connection matters here. During the Trump administration, several stimulus actions were structured in ways that bypassed typical congressional benefit formulas. Some payments were tied to executive authority. Others were routed through agencies like the SSA, not because they were social security benefits, but because the SSA already had the infrastructure to reach millions of people quickly. Those decisions didn't disappear, they were archived, and archived does not mean erased. Over the years, many of those files sat untouched because reopening them requires justification. Legal review, budget review, timing review, which brings us to now. The reason reviewed matters more than any rumour is because reviews only happen when something upstream has changed. That could include legal interpretations shifting, budget authority reopening, or political leadership asking agencies to re-examine dormant options. Again, this does not mean a final decision has been made, but it does mean the system is rechecking what could be done, not what was done before, but what might still be possible under existing authority. And that's also why public statements are quiet. When agencies are exploring options, they don't alert the public. They don't start press tours, because outcomes aren't guaranteed and expectations can spiral fast. Instead, files move internally, language changes, departments talk, and the most important sign isn't an announcement, it's activity. Right now, activity is happening. And the next question everyone should be asking isn't how much or when. It's this: who are these files meant to affect? Because the answer to that determines everything that follows. This is where it stops being abstract and starts hitting real life. Because reviews like this are never about everyone. They're about specific groups, defined populations, people the system already knows how to reach. And when you look at how past stimulus-style actions moved through the SSA, a pattern starts to appear. These decisions almost always focus on people who depend on monthly benefits to survive: retirees, disabled workers, widows and widowers, low-income seniors, people on SSI who already live close to the edge. If you're in one of those groups, even small changes can ripple through your entire month. Think about what a few $100s would actually do. Not hypothetically, real life. Catching up on an electric bill that's been sitting too long, covering groceries without watching every price on the shelf, filling a prescription without cutting something else out. That's why these reviews matter so much more than headlines. In the past, stimulus-linked actions tied to Social Security didn't always look the same. Some were one-time payments, some were temporary boosts, some helped one group while another saw nothing at all, and that's important to understand. Not seeing money doesn't mean nothing happened, and seeing money doesn't mean it becomes permanent. If anything moves forward from these files, it would likely follow that same pattern: targeted, limited, purposeful. Certain seniors might qualify while others don't. SSDI recipients could be included while SSI rules stay different. Survivors and spousal beneficiaries might be evaluated separately. That's not cruelty. That's how federal rules work. The system uses existing data. It looks at income limits, benefit type, eligibility categories. The goal is not equal distribution. The goal is relief where pressure is highest. And that's also why anxiety is showing up right now, because millions of people are doing math in their heads without having full information. They're asking themselves whether help is even possible anymore, whether they missed something, whether the door closed for good. This review suggests the door isn't locked, but there's another part people need to hear. Silence from the SSA does not mean denial. When internal reviews are active, frontline workers are often instructed to say very little. Letters stay vague. Call centres sound scripted. That's frustrating, but it's not random. It's because decisions haven't been finalised. So if you haven't seen a notice or a deposit or a clear statement, that doesn't mean you're excluded. It simply means the process hasn't reached the public stage yet, and that brings us to the hardest part to wait for. What happens next? This is the point where expectations matter more than speculation. When files move into active review inside the SSA, the next phase is not fast, it's careful. Agencies look at authority first, then cost, then impact, and only after that do they decide whether anything moves forward publicly. So what usually happens next looks like this. Internal reviews wrap up, recommendations are written, legal teams weigh in, budget numbers are tested. If something clears those updates, and eventually public confirmation. If it doesn't clear those hurdles, the process stops quietly. And that's why it's so important not to believe every headline or social media post promising instant checks or guaranteed payouts. That's where confusion and scams tend to thrive. Real relief never starts with flashy promises. It starts with internal work most people never see. Right now, the most important thing you can do is stay grounded. Watch for official notices. Be cautious of messages asking for personal information. And remember that the SSA will never require you to apply quickly through unofficial links for stimulus-style payments. If help moves forward, it will be processed using information the agency already has. Direct deposit, mailing addresses, existing records, no rush, no panic. And here's the part I want you to hear clearly. If you've been feeling anxious lately, wondering whether the system has forgotten you, that feeling makes sense. A lot of people are carrying that weight quietly. Fixed incomes don't stretch the way they used to. And uncertainty is exhausting. The fact that these files are being reviewed doesn't guarantee relief, but it does prove something important. The conversation isn't over. Options are still being examined. Pressure is still being recognized. And the system is not as frozen as it can sometimes feel from the outside. As this develops, accurate information will matter more than ever. That's why staying informed, not alarmed, is your best protection right now. If you want to keep up with verified updates as they happen, stay connected here, subscribe, check back, and make sure you're hearing explanations, not hype. Because when something real moves, you'll want to understand exactly what it means for you.